Here we are today in a new software update for our Model Y hardware 4. We've got the same FSD version 14.2.2.4, but a new software version 2025.45.9.1. So hopefully there is something different about FSD. We have recently had problems with the navigation of FSD. I don't believe that that's going to be fixed anyway. We'll check it out. Also, the other main concern is parking and speed control. So those two things, again, parking is a upcoming improvement. So upcoming improvements are parking spot selection and parking quality. We don't have that yet. And then overall smoothness and sentience. I don't even know really what that's supposed to mean, but we're going to go ahead and somebody recommended that what we should do is do a scroll wheel reset. So I'm actually going to see if we can go ahead and start the car. In the past, if we do a scroll wheel update, it usually would allow it to do that while it is driving. I wonder if it will do that while it is doing FSD. It might be difficult for us to actually do that. I'm going to hold the scroll wheels. No, I couldn't really I couldn't really do that while it was doing it, but we are doing, if you didn't know, you can do a scroll wheel reset of Tesla. So, and you can continue to drive. I don't know if you can hear it, but we do have a turn signal on. So you can still have a turn signal on and everything. You just don't know what speed it's going. You don't know what it sees and that sort of thing, but you can continue to drive. I'm actually not sure if you can continue to have it in FSD. That would be an interesting thing to try out. Maybe we will see if we can do that. However, don't need to do that at the moment. But they did recommend a software reset, just a little reboot there, just to see if it would help us out with some of the navigation issues we're having. I'm going to go ahead and I want to reselect this route here. So it's being a little hesitant to allow us to select a different route. It says navigating without connectivity. So it hasn't reconnected with that software reboot, but it is interesting that you can drive around with the screen off there as it's resetting. Still can't seem to select this route, which is unfortunate. Not really sure why it's not letting us do that. Well, okay. We'll just let it, let's just let it go the route it's going to go. Can't force it too much. So that is one of the things. It's like, you know, if I want it to go a particular direction, it's difficult to get it to go the direction that I want it to go necessarily, or the route that I would like it to take. That's just kind of the nature of FSD at this point. We don't have a whole lot of options. Usually you can select different routes if you would like it to go a different direction, but in this case I do have 5 destinations, I believe, on this route. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, 6 routes, 6 destinations on this route. So actually a pretty decent amount of destinations. So we'll see how it does for parking at these different locations after we have done a soft reboot of the system. So maybe that'll help with its hesitancy to park in spaces. We've had that happen a few times where basically it got in the space as you would expect, but then it just never put it in park. And I have noticed that on situations where we have multiple destinations, and maybe that's where it's coming from, but really there's no reason for it to do that. This is a new software update, so maybe the new software update prevents that from being a problem. We shall see. First destination is a Publix. Now on this road here, it says 45 right here, but every time I come out onto the street from this spot right here, it actually says that the speed limit is 30. So interestingly enough, the car has figured out, because we started at a different location on this road, that the speed limit is 45, and that's accurate. So I don't have to deal with anything as far as changing the speed profile to Mad Max in order for it to actually drive an appropriate speed. So that's good. And I will say that I've had a lot of challenges with the speed control lately. Recently took a trip where did about 3 hours on the interstate with varying speed limits between 55, 65, and it was not able to keep a consistent or an appropriate speed. There was many times, actually, in fact, when we were going 72 miles per hour in a 55, and yeah, that's not acceptable. That was on standard. I would have to bring it all the way down to sloth, and then it would recognize that it needed to slow down in the 55. But when I put it back up to standard, which should be, a comfortable, like maybe 5 miles per hour over the speed limit, it would continue to go back up to 17 miles per hour over the speed limit. And it seemed almost unusable, because either I had to go the speed limit of 55, or I had to go 17 miles per hour over the speed limit, which neither I wanted to do. But in order to not get a ticket, I definitely had to stick with the sloth, because I'd rather just go the speed limit even if people are passing me, and I feel like I'm really not going an appropriate speed as far as going with the flow of traffic. But I definitely don't want to be going so far over the speed limit. So sometimes you just have to kind of deal with these speed profiles, how they're going to work. And unfortunately, if it was thinking the speed limit was 65 and it was actually 55, then even in sloth, likely we would have been going too fast. So those speed profiles are definitely a problem. Like, we really need that max speed back in our supervised FSD. Now, if they want to take away all that in the unsupervised and just go whatever speed the car deems safe on the speed, I will say that it always drives a safe speed, in my experience, for the conditions of the road and what the road looks like, but not necessarily following the speed limit that is set forth for the road. And if they're willing to take the credit for any speeding ticket, if it got pulled over, car takes Tesla takes the speeding ticket and they pay it, it just goes to them, then I guess I'd be okay with that. But honestly, I think it's going to be a long time before that actually happens, that they're going to take credit for those speed tickets or take responsibility for the speeding tickets they might receive for just not going the correct speed. I'm going to go ahead and put my turn signal on. This guy behind me, he definitely wanted to go around me. So to be courteous, I went ahead and put my turn signal on, just so he can see. He obviously wanted to go more like 45 and a 35. Car's going in appropriate speed, like 30, 38 and 35. That was actually comfortable, but a lot of people on this road want to go faster than that. So instead of having him pass us on the right, I went ahead and put the turn signal on. That is an intervention, but not one that was safety critical or anything, just to be courteous of other drivers on the road. All right, so we're going to park here. This is supposed to be Publix, but honestly, we're really parking more at Papa John's. The Publix is actually a decent space over there, so there's no places where you could put your cart over here. So if I was actually going to the Publix, this would not be a very good spot. So parking quality, still a problem. But we're just going to go ahead and continue on to O'Reilly Auto Parts. It did actually put it in park. So it did a good job parking in this space, and it put it in park, and everything worked out that way. But yeah, if I was actually going to shop at Publix, I would not have wanted to be so far from actual Publix, especially if I was going to have a shopping cart that I was going to have to return somewhere. There were no places where I could return it nearby. All right, so people not stopping at. I mean, technically, I guess he didn't really have a stop sign. He just had a stop line. He didn't have a stop sign here either. But anytime there's a white line there, I mean, you would think that's pretty much definitive that you're supposed to stop. But he did not do so. All right, so it does a good job of getting across the 2 lanes there and getting into the turn lane as it should. This truck in front of us didn't stop at all. He just drove right on through. Again, there was not a stop sign there, but I'm pretty sure with the stop line, you're required to stop. I could be wrong about that, honestly. I don't really know. So I don't know. Let me know in your area or laws of your area. Would it require you to stop at a stop line where there is not actually a stop sign? I mean, I guess technically there's no stop sign, so there's really no reason you have to stop. But Tesla and FSD did choose to come to a complete stop at that stop line, and I think it was a safe and appropriate maneuver. I think it's pretty rare that actually you wouldn't have to stop, but we didn't actually have to stop, as the truck in front of us obviously did not stop, and there was nobody there, so it worked out for him just fine as well. Pretty short light there. All right, so we're going to be going up to this O'Reilly Auto Parts. It's coming up on the right here, and then our next destination will actually be kind of like straight across the street. So I'll be interested to see what route it decides to take to go across the street. There's actually 5 lanes here. 2 lanes on either direction and the turn lane in the middle. So we'll see what it does. Funny how in that situation it doesn't really regard the white lines as actually anything that it needs to follow in that instance. But in other times it does. I mean, definitely I would have turned in there, so that was fine. Okay, we're going to Bonin's Bakery, and it is almost directly across the street. So again, directly across these 5 lanes. And if I was driving, what I would do is I'd turn right onto this road, and then I would turn left at the next light, and then turn left into that parking lot. So let's see what Tesla decides to do, what FSD is going to decide to do. This was a good parking job here, by the way, at O'Reilly Auto Parts. It backed in, nice in the middle of the space, and it did actually put itself in park. So, I don't know. I don't know if that has something to do with nighttime driving, or if it has something to do with the previous update, or the software, like the soft reset that I did on the car here. So it does look like we are not putting our turn signal on. So we are planning on going straight across the street here. Again, totally possible. Not my choice, because I think it's going to be much more difficult to find a nice gap to go straight across the street here than it would be to just turn right and then left. But did it find it? Oh my gosh. All right, this is no good. We're out in the middle here. We got to get going. All right. So, I mean, there were no cars coming, so that was fine. But, I mean, I would have just gone ahead. Like, if I was going to make that maneuver, I would have just punched it and gone straight across. Like, totally could have gotten in front of that car that was coming. But for some reason, it decided to be a lot more timid on that situation. But in doing so, we were actually in the middle of that road, perpendicular to the traffic that was coming down the road. Again, no cars were actually coming at that immediate time, so we were safe and it was no problem. But I will say that would not have been my top choice for how to complete that maneuver. And so now we're going to, looks like, park in this space here. This is a good parking spot, like right up front, and not a handicap spot or anything. Yeah, so that was interesting, going straight across the street. But it did it. It did it just fine. It looks like, again, now we have another opportunity here where a much easier way to get to this location. We're going to the Red Roof Inn. A much easier way to get here would just be go across this parking lot and not get on the main road at all. But it says it's going to try to turn left onto the main road and then turn left back onto the road that this parking lot is off of. So very interesting that it would make that choice. Again, it's just a navigation issue that it's really just making this navigation route much more difficult than it has to be. Now, of course, sometimes FSD just decides to go a different route and doesn't actually follow what the navigation says, but I have a feeling we're going to go ahead and follow the route. Yep, does look like we are going to follow this route. So we're going to go out, make a potentially difficult, traffic's not too bad today, but potentially difficult left turn onto this main road, which we could, again, avoid entirely by just have been going just across the parking lot to the side street where our destination is actually off of. So of course, FSD likes to do most things the hard way instead of just the easy route. And it's situations like this that if I were going somewhere that I actually intended to go, even though FSD is going to drive itself, and I'm sure we're going to do just a fine job of turning out here onto this main road, I would have taken over and I would have forced it to go the much easier route. Because why make it so hard? Why make it so difficult? We got a decent amount of traffic here coming on the left. Then we got a decent amount of traffic coming from the right. We only need to get in the turn lane, so we could go now. Yeah, so that was a gap, and that worked. No reason to get in this lane because we did need to be immediately in the turn lane. So hopefully we're going to get in the turn lane. Yes, okay. Yeah, so, I mean, again, we just did that all the hardest way we could have. We could have just avoided all that. And we could have, we're going back towards the same parking lot that we were just in. Like, we literally could have just driven across that parking lot and then come over here to our destination. So, yeah, not my top choice of how I would go about doing that. All right, and we are now going to a Pep Boys instead of going to the Red Roof Inn. All right, I'm going to stop it there. That's no good. Can't go behind this Pep Boys. All right, so that is a disengagement. I think we could technically drive back there, but that is not a good spot to go. I'm going to go ahead and re-engage it. It was going to try to go back behind the Pep Boys there. I think maybe it thought that there was a connection between the two parking lots, but there definitely is not. And now, after I disengaged it there to get it to go again, try to get in the Red Roof Inn parking lot, it did. It got in the Red Roof Inn parking lot, and now we're going to park at the Sleep Inn parking lot. So, yeah, parking quality, navigation, all still very much an issue. We were technically going in drivable space there behind that Pep Boys, but I did not want to get behind that Pep Boys. We did now park, reasonably close to the Red Roof Inn. It is over there. Technically, we are in the Sleep Inn and Suites parking lot, not the Red Roof Inn parking lot, but that's all right. We'll just go ahead and continue our trip. But yeah, the parking quality is just, and the navigation, trying to find an appropriate space to park at the locations, the destinations that you have chosen, is still very suspect. I can't fault it too much because it's not supposed to be included in this update. I mean, we're supposed to get parking improvements in a later update, so maybe that'll be the case. Now, interestingly enough, in this situation, it wouldn't be that crazy to go out on the main road to actually get to where we wanted to go. And instead of going out onto the main road, because we just had to turn right, we are turning into a Tire Discounters, going through the Tire Discounters parking lot. And then it looks like we're going to go across here. We're going to go into another parking lot for a couple different businesses here. Again, we could have gone into like the main parking lot and where there's actually kind of a road that kind of cuts across here. But instead we went through all these small business parking lots to get over here to the racetrack. Now, in the past, I actually had it find a situation where it parked straddling two spaces here at this racetrack. So let's see if it actually does a decent parking job this time. At racetrack, that would be nice if it actually learned to park a little bit. Okay. All right, yeah, so it went out wide to the left and then back to the right, pulled into this parking space nicely. Man, I actually feel like we're a little bit close. Man, what are we doing? Oh, so it is going to correct itself. I mean, I thought it was decently within the middle of that space, but actually corrected the space parking. But we were pretty close to that pole in front of us. I was a little bit worried about that. All right. But overall, good parking job. I'm going to go ahead and start it again. So, yeah, it's just at least we haven't had any situation where it didn't actually seem to confidently and fully park in a space. So with all these destinations, it did actually end up parking in a valid space, and it did so well and cleanly. Really just that one problem there where I just wasn't going to let it drive behind that Pep Boys. Like, clearly that's only where you'd want to go if you were a Pep Boys employee and trying to pull your car into the bay of their workshop there. So, like, definitely not something I wanted to do. Definitely didn't want to see what it was going to do back there behind the Pep Boys as far as getting in the way of whatever they might have lined up over there, confusing the people, causing a problem. Again, not a safety critical issue, just a little bit of a navigation thing. And I do think that what it was trying to do was trying to find a connection to that Red Roof Inn parking lot, which ironically, like, it just turned too early. That's all it did. It didn't have anything to do with safety issue or anything like that. It just turned too early and ended up in the wrong parking lot. I'm actually surprised that once I disengaged and then re-engaged it, that it was able to actually continue on to the correct location. Technically, it then overshot the correct location and went somewhere else, but usually once you get that close to a destination, it kind of just clears it from your routing. So I actually kind of expected it would just skip Red Roof Inn entirely and move on to the racetrack. All right, so we are going to hopefully end up, our final destination is back where we started. And these people, I don't understand why these people park like this. They stick their car out like they're just parked in the grass in front of their house, and they could easily just pull like 2 feet further into the grass. There's nothing in front of them, and instead they let the car just kind of stick out there in the road. I have no idea why somebody would do that, but they do appear to be doing that very consistently over weeks. Yeah, so I mean, we did a lot of pretty complicated driving. I especially, again, I would not have chosen to go the way that it chose to go. So especially from the O'Reilly Auto Parts to the bakery, it decided to go across a 5-lane street, and I definitely would have not done that. Me personally, as a driver, I would have just taken a right and then the next left, and then it would have been easy to get into the parking lot. And honestly, it probably would have been quicker or about the same amount of time, because we did have to wait for a gap where there was no cars where we could go all the way across. And I did not like how it kind of stopped in the middle of the road there instead of being more aggressive about just going across, because we definitely had time to do so. So that would be my biggest complaint about this drive. But otherwise, all of the driving was very smooth. It was very good. And the only thing that it really messed up on, to the point where I had to disengage, and I guess I didn't have to disengage, but just going behind that Pep Boys, I didn't want to do that. So not a safety critical disengagement, but definitely disengagement, just because I was not comfortable driving behind there and getting in their way for whatever they might be doing as far as getting cars into the Pep Boys to work on. So the rest of this drive should be pretty straightforward and easy. So really just still anxiously awaiting a major update. I'm really hoping that we're going to get 14.3 soon, and that 14.3 is going to really have all of that parking stuff, that we can go and we can test the parking garages, and hopefully they'll give us more options for where you want to park when you get to a location. So hopefully the car will be able to park, in certain areas of the parking lot versus other areas. Like, I don't want to be like right up front, right next to the place. Maybe I want to park further away. Maybe I want to, when I get to a grocery store, I want to make sure that the car noses into a parking lot, and instead of backing into the parking spot, because I need to put my groceries in the trunk. Those sort of things I'm hoping are all coming with 14.3. We'll have to wait and see if that's going to be the case or not. But at least for now, we are continuing to test these very minor point releases. In fact, on FSD, there is not a new point release. It's just a new point release for the software as a whole. All right, so it sees that truck that they kind of want to go, and it kind of waited for them, but now we're kind of being slow, in my opinion. He's waiting for us. I went ahead and waved, even though I feel like we were kind of rude by going so slow there. I mean, FSD is just doing its thing. Nothing unsafe about that, and we did the right thing, but could have been a little quicker about doing it, just to be a little more courteous to other drivers on the road. At this point, that's kind of the theme here. A lot of the disengagements I have are not a safety disengagement. They're just something that, for my preference, I want to change, or just because I want it to be more courteous to others, which by the way, is also just a preference of mine. So very rarely do I have any situation where I disengage because I felt like it was a safety critical situation. So all we got to do here is park, and we will be done. Yeah, pretty much parked in the same spot we did when we came here. Yeah, so that's it for this one. Yep, okay, it's in park. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.